Back to the ETF Inspector. It's Wednesday, June 25th, Declaration Day for our YieldMax funds, and this will be the video for our weekly paying funds, ULTY, the YieldMax Ultra Option Income Strategy Fund, and LFGY, the Crypto Industry and Tech Portfolio Option Income Fund. Reminder again, I'm on X at ETF_Inspector1. Follow me if you want. I basically repost. So when the declarations came out today, we will go through them on a different page to show you some percentages. And I'll also let you know, hey, videos are out or videos are coming or what the delay is. I try to not miss anytime I'm supposed to be putting out a video, even if it means staying up till 11 o'clock at night, which is not my favorite thing to do. But quick update, we're getting really close. Might make the 1,000 by the end of the week, by the end of the month. Either way, it's looking good. I think we've got about 23 or 2,400 watch hours, so we're still not really close to that 4,000 mark. So that'll turn into the new goal once we hit the goal of 1,000 subscribers. All right, let's take a look. We'll start off with the declarations. In this box here, we've got the weeklies. So they are in highest to lowest from amount distributed, not necessarily stock or percentage. So running right down the line, LFGY a little over 48 cents, Chippy a little over 37 cents, GPTY a little over 31 cents, RDTY 20 cents and change, YMAG and YMAX both 15 cents and change, QDTY and SDTY both 11 and change, and ULTY a little over 9. So the winner, if we're going to call it that, based off of annual yield percentage, once again is ULTY, paying out 76.5%. As far as Group C, these are our call it monthly, but it's actually every 4 weeks. So you actually get 13 in a year. HUI comes out ahead with the highest distribution, $6.50, a little over that. Carvani, $1.70 and change. Coney, 53.5-ish cents. MSFO, a little over 48 cents. AMDY, a little over 46 cents. NFLY, 43 and change cents. PayPal, almost 33 cents, 32.97. Abney for Airbnb, 32 and change, and Fiat, 15 and change. The winner out of those, Hui, coming out with almost 123% annually. If you are interested in some of these Group C's, I also will be making a video tonight that has the 7 funds I cover. MSFO, AMDY, and NFLY are 3 of those 7. So we'll talk a little bit more about those and how those went compared to our estimate. Okay, the market was pretty mixed today. And if you noticed on our thumbnail, we had some changes once again. Those are always the worst because I have to rewrite formulas. But we sold out of Circle, Internet Group, and the bigger surprise was NVIDIA. And then we added 2 new ones, even though we just added 2 new ones yesterday, Mobileye and New Scale Power Corp. So ULTY itself went down just a little, I think like 2 cents, and LFGY was up how much? To 40.07. So we broke that 40 mark again. So that's pretty nice to be paying out distributions, even though they've been losing money, and we're holding over 40 or staying over 40. Same thing with ULTY, right? I mean, since I've been talking about them, they were low 6s, and we're actually higher, even though we've been paying out weekly while losing the trades. So can't be upset about that. So we go onto the YieldMax website, right? It came out late today. That's why I'm running late, because I had things to go to and didn't get to do all my all the legwork, so I had to come home and do them starting at like 8:15, 8:30. So download the intraday trades. We scroll down. ULTY wasn't as bad as usual, but it still was a nice chunk. Starting at line 199, running to line 253, so a lot better than usual. 54 lines of it. And then LFGY starting at 255, going to 273. Not bad at all. All right, we went ahead and entered them in, crunched our numbers, and now we'll talk about it. We'll start real quick with talking about the distribution. So if you remember in the Sunday week look ahead and payment guesstimate, we said they lost 16 cents a share on their trading, so it wasn't going to come from that. They generally try to pay the IV. It was 8.81 cents. I actually rounded down to 8.75 because they paid 8.75 the week before, and we actually lost more in this week being referenced than we lost in the week before. But if you remember, I also said I wouldn't be surprised if it went over 9 in my Monday video. So I should have rounded it up to 9 because we did well as far as value of the fund increases throughout the week. So they paid 9.23 cents, and I was off by 5.2%. All right, we'll take a look at trades for today. Now, they don't tell us exactly how they do things, so my calculations might not always be right. I look at, it's called an option income fund. So when I give you our trading profit and loss, it is trading the options. I do not include the buying or selling of the shares themselves in that because, it's not a trading income fund. Generally, they get into a position and then they're making the money off the trades. Don't need to go real deep into this. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but this is what I do. So, AppLovin, they just bought some more shares, so they sold some more options to go with them, profiting $83,000. Circle, we closed it out, so we sold the shares almost 4.7 million. We had already sold a lot more at a higher price, so we made out well buying into them for like 110 and selling at a couple different points in the 200s. So we made money buying and selling the stock, even though that's not the goal. We lost money on pretty much all options with Circle. So I'm assuming that's why they got out of it. I also personally, if you watched my trade video, I got burnt last week on it. Didn't learn my lesson, did it again, and got burnt again this week. So I'll have another fun story to tell on Saturday. But closing out these options on Circle, we made $158,000 profit. Here's where it starts to hurt. We had to roll our hood calls at 80 and 81, had to roll them up to 88, paying almost $5 and $3, and then only receiving $1.86, $1.35. And looking over, I just noticed that I never went back and finished updating this expiration line. I just dragged and dropped, but we can see we had to roll out to July 3rd. I just do that so I can speak quicker, so we had to roll up and out, took a $1.1 million loss. MBLY, that's a new stock, Mobileye Global. So we bought 600,000 shares, giving us the ability to sell 6,000 contracts of options. Profited $192,000 on those. They're sold out till next week, next Friday. MicroStrategy closed out our 375s for this Friday, paying almost $10 and a little over $12 a share. And we sold 390s and 392.50s out till next Friday, losing $330,000. NVIDIA, I'm not sure why they're getting out of NVIDIA, but they sold the shares, so they had to close out the options. That cost us $1 million to close them out. Reddit went up, so they closed the 141s and sold 155s. Now, granted, right, they sold the 122 puts that went with it and bought new puts, but you're really not interested in insurance policies. So this is where all the money's made and lost. So we lost $1.3 million on that roll, again, having to roll out till next Friday. SMCI, again, lost a trade. Buy to close the 45s for $217. having to sell 49s out till next Friday for $1.15, $290,000 loss. SMR, that is New Scale Power Corporation, is another new add-on. We bought 275,000 shares so we can sell 2,750 contracts. We did that for next Friday at 42.50, profiting 198,000. TNA, it's a triple leveraged fund. We just sold a large portion of our insurance policy. That's kind of an odd line there. And then we sold 1,500 contracts at 34 and bought insurance to go with it. We profited 79,000. Let me scroll up. Was TNA? Yeah, so we bought more TNA. That's where that came from. TQQQ, we had to roll. Bought the close the 76s for $3.33. Sold 81s for next Friday, $1.32, losing $865,000. And finally, Tesla. This was the only winner, I think. I'm losing track. But bought the close at 64 and 21 cents and sold again until next Friday. But this time we're collecting 675 and 685. So we finally had a good trade there, 900,000 profit. So trading, profit and loss for the day, we lost $3.3 million trading. As you can see, we lost on value too. Generally, they don't like to go together that way. But the problem is if you lose on a lot of them, and then the ones that go up just blow your doors off on the trades, that's how you end up losing both ways. All right, we'll take a look at how the individual underlyings did within it. If you haven't seen the last couple of videos, we're kind of trying to streamline this. So I'm not going to tell you every closing price. I'm not going to tell you every change in market value. So I'll just talk about the change, how it affected the options, and then at the bottom, we'll talk about the total. Quick scroll. Biggest winner for the day was SMCI, Supermicrocomputer, 8.8% increase. We'll talk on that one. So almost $1.8 million increase. And then the biggest loss was Circle Internet Group, 10.79% decrease. It says that would be a $552,000 loss, but we actually sold at 204, so we didn't take that full loss. But okay, AppLovin dropped 3% today, which actually helped because we were in the money on these calls, and we are now out of the money by 1.83%. So these can go back to having a chance of being closed out as a win. AST Space Mobile similarly lost 6.1%, just barely getting these back out of the money, so that helped us a lot. And then they also have another set of calls that are 12% out of the money, but they're out till July, so we're not worried about them for Friday. Coinbase up 3%. Taking us 1.5% into the money. They didn't close them out, so we'll just wait. We'll let some time decay, drop these premiums, and hope that it can come back down a little bit so we can collect or keep the most premium. Sorry, I know if people have been watching all these videos, you get tired of hearing the same things, but there's new people, new subscribers every day. So the color coding on the options, red, yellow, green, red being bad. If the call that we sold is in the money, we're going to have to pay more to close it out. If it is in the yellow or the green at the end of the day on Friday, it ends up being worthless. So that means it's going to be cheaper to close out. Yellow being 5% or less in our favor, green being greater than 5%. And then our orange color over here indicates a change. If we just talked about the trades and the rolls on the trades page, then we don't need to talk about these options because they no longer exist. So these shares altogether no longer exist. First Solar up 1%. We've got 150s and 152.50s. Both are now in the money, 1.7 and 0.13%. But again, not far enough that they panicked, so they'd rather just let some time decay and wipe some of that premium off before they pay to close them. Robinhood went up 0.9%, and they rolled all the options, so we don't need to talk about them anymore. IonQ down 6.7%, which helped because these were in the money. They're now 5% out of the money. And then they've got three different strikes, 40, 42.50, and 43.50, with the majority at 43.50. The others are 11.5% and 14% out of the money. LabU down 2.12%, taking their calls 5% out of the money. Mara Holdings up 0.67, still just barely out of the money on the 15s, but they're not as important. 953 contracts compared to 11,000 contracts that are 3.5% out of the money. MicroStrategy went up 3%. That was enough for them to go ahead and pull the trigger on a roll. So these options are now changed out. We'll get the new information from the download tomorrow morning. Micron Technology, that was new yesterday. It's our old new. We've already got new today. They went down 0.5%. So the calls that we have sold are 7.6% out of the money. Nike, the other new one from yesterday, down almost 1%. So their calls are 6.86% out of the money. NVIDIA, we sold the shares, closed the options. Done with that. Oklo lost 8.47%. That was helpful because we were about 4% in the money. Now we're out of the money. So good job on them by not panicking and closing those out. Another day went by, another drop, so these will be cheaper. And they have July options that are almost 17% out of the money. Palantir down about 0.25%. Still 0.63% in the money. So again, but this was still a good job to not close these. They got cheaper by going down and cheaper by another day ticking by. And they still have 148s that are 3.5% out of the money. Reddit went up 0.63%. They rolled the options. So these are no longer in play. Rigetti lost 3.57%, giving us a little bit more wiggle room. These 13,000, almost 14,000 contracts are now 3.7% out of the money. And the other 3,800 contracts at 1250 are 12.7% out of the money. RH up 1.59. They're still 1.6% out of the money. SMCI was the big winner, up 8.8%. I put the orange over here because they rolled. It was about half of them. It was 2,400 contracts out of the 4,752. So half of these are still in play, about 3.5% in the money. The other half have been rolled to next week. Tempus AI down 4.1%. They've got 70s and 74s, twice as many contracts at 74, 6.9 and 13% out of the money. TNA down 3.16%. This was the weird one where they just they have. A lot of this one didn't make sense, right? So they've got a call and a put, right? Call at 32.50, put at 27, but it was 2,000 contracts compared to 12,000 some contracts. So they, I guess they closed out a large portion of the calls the other day and not the puts to go with them. It actually worked out in their favor because with a 3% drop, those puts went up in value. Although let's see, let's check real quick. 5.5 cents is what they ended the day yesterday. So we'll go to TNA. We're on a little detour here. Nope. It still didn't matter. Once you get real far away from the money, they start dropping even if you get a drop. So 2 cents. So who knows why they left them till today. But they closed out the extras. So this will now match 1.9% out of the money and 6.6% out of the money. That was fun. We went on a little tangent just to show that I was wrong. TQQQ up 0.77%. They rolled the options that were in the money. They still have $80 calls that are 1.9% out of the money. Tesla lost almost 8%. So they actually rolled the options that were further out of the money, just closed them as wins. You see, they ended yesterday at 337 and 113, and they closed them. We talked about it a little while ago at like 64 and 21 cents. So they did well there and collected like 675, I think, selling the next set of options. So good job on that one. Upstart down 3.72. So these guys were well over 4% in the money yesterday. Good job on not closing them out. They came back with another day going by, so that's going to help. And 7.3% out of the money on the other $67 calls. Vertiv Holdings down a little over 0.5%. Got them from the red back to the yellow, 0.3% out of the money. And Vista Corp up a fraction, less than a tenth. Still almost 2% out of the money. Altogether, the values of the stocks themselves dropped by about $7.4 million on the day. Since between yesterday and today, we added 2.2 million outstanding shares, bringing us up to 98 million and change. So we're getting close to 100 million shares of the fund. And we did, if you remember yesterday, we had a huge up day. I said we were going to break 600 million. So we did that. We're now value of the fund, or the net assets under management, 617 million. Okay. Let's go ahead and switch over to LFGY. It's a little quicker to get through LFGY, less trades and less underlyings. Okay, so we'll start out. No trading of shares. We will start by talking about the distribution. So they declared 48.36 cents. Like we said in our guesstimate video, they lost 10 cents a share, so it wasn't going to be based on that. The IV multiplied by the closing price came up to 42 and change, 42 and a half cents. They've been paying 45, 46 lately. So I went with an estimate of 46, came out to be 48. I was 4.88% off. So not too bad. Again, that's not the goal. I like to give you a little guess, but I just like to give you every bit of information I can, show you every detail of what your money's doing, what they bought, what they sold, how they're doing. All right, so Clean Spark, they closed for the 950s and sold 11s. So the 950s got blown through. That lost 545,000. Robinhood, they closed the 79s, had to sell 90s. So again, they went from this Friday to next Friday on Clean Spark. Same thing with Robinhood. Same thing with Mercado Libre, Nvidia, and Tesla. So all rolls went out to next week. On Robinhood, they lost 256,000. On Mercado Libre, that's MELI, bought to close their 2,450s. They had to pay $113 a share, $114 a share. And then they sold 2,610s for $21 a share. So that hurt. Fortunately, there's not that many contracts. So $105,000 loss. MicroStrategy, they just sold some more options. So I guess they bought some shares the other day and didn't sell the maximum amount. So they sold some $400 calls, collecting 8,000. Nvidia, they closed their 146s for this week, opened 155s for next week. Decent loss, 105,000. And Tesla closed out their 367.50s for today, or for Friday, 19 cents, and sold 340s for next Friday, $7.56. So they profited 86,000. Totaled all up, they lost $917,000 trading today. And then we've got our share value increase. They actually profited. We'll walk over to the other side to see how that came about. We talked about already. LFGY closed above 40 at 40.07. So we've got BitDeer, lost 2.19%. Their options are 16% out of the money. Surprised they didn't roll these since they ended yesterday at 5 cents. Can't imagine going to make a whole lot more money, but and then they didn't close them today. They got to be worth a penny at this point. Clean Spark was the big winner, 5.58% increase, took them way in the money, so they rolled them. We just talked about it. Coinbase made 3%, but they're still 1.3% out of the money. Core Scientific up 0.75%, still 1.6% out of the money. Galaxy Digital lost 1.5%. That helped these 47 contracts go back to being out of the money by 0.5%. And then the much larger sum, 1,000 contracts at 2050 are 5.6% out of the money. GameStop up 1.1%, still 4% out of the money on the options. Robinhood up 1%, took them further than they like to be, so they closed these options and sold new ones for next week. HUD 8 Corp up 1.2%, still 3.1% out of the money. iShares went up 2%. They don't trade options on them, so it's just a straight up value increase. So they increased $257,000 in value. Mara Holdings up 0.67%, still 0.13% out of the money. So we're getting real close here. We need it to sit still. They're 2 cents away. And then MBTX, they have 2 different spreads with them, but they don't own any shares, so we don't care necessarily. There's no value increases to the fund when it goes up and down. It's just whether or not we win the options. Still 1.8% out of the money on the calls that have already been pushed out to July 18th, so we don't have to talk about them forever. Same thing, the put spread that they have is out till December 31st, and this is actually a debit spread where they purchased closer to the money put, so they're betting it will drop below 230. This was worth well over $6 million yesterday. It's now worth 5.7, so that's going in the wrong direction for them. Mercado Libre up about 0.5%. They closed and rolled those to next week. MicroStrategy up 3%. Took them in the money by almost 1%, but they left them alone for now. NU Holdings lost 1.5%. Their calls are 5.8% out of the money. NVIDIA up 4.33%. They rolled these options to next week. Opera up 0.88%. Still 9% out of the money, though. PayPal down 0.69%. So this was another one where it was good that they didn't roll them just because they went in the money. So it dropped. That will drop the price. Plus another day went by, so that will also get rid of some time value. Riot down 0.2%, which helped because they were 0.2% in the money. So now they are right at the money on the $10 calls. There's only 181 of them. The one that's important is staying under 1050. There's 6,000 contracts there. They're 5% out of the money. Tesla was the big loser over here on LFGY, down almost 3.8%. These were far enough out of the money that they went ahead and rolled them, called it a win, bought the close, ended the trade as a win, and opened next week's. And then XYZ or Block down 0.8%, taking their calls 1.8% out of the money. So all those increases and decreases in value totaled out to an increase of $1.7 million to the fund. There's roughly $139 million being managed in the fund and still 3.5 million outstanding shares. I think that's everything, right? We talked about the declarations for today. They were both surprises to the upside, so can't complain about that. Share prices of ULTY and LFGY are holding strong. Again, can't complain about that. We keep getting paid, and the price is not dropping on us. So we are happy campers. That's everything we've got. Dad joke of the day. It's actually a good one today, I think, anyway. So before I do, just thank you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting the channel. I appreciate it. Please like. Obviously, likes don't make you any money. It just tells YouTube people like this, and then they're more likely to suggest it to other people looking up similar type of videos. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Share the videos with people that you know that are interested in ULTY or LFGY. All right, dad joke of the day. Where do pirates get their hooks? At the secondhand store. It's one of the better ones lately. All right, have a good night and good luck trading on Thursday.